Ready? Okay. Start. الحمد لله نحمده ونستعينه ونستغفره ونعوذ بالله من شرور أنفسنا ومن سيئات أعمالنا من يهده الله فلا مضل له ومن يضلل فلا هادي له وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله صلى الله عليه وعلى آله وأصحابه ومن سار على سبيله إلى يوم الدين أما بعد. So tonight, inshallah ta'ala, we'll continue discussing the book Muqtasar Sahih Bukhari, and the one that we have chosen to discuss is the one of Zabidi rahimahullah. That is one of the Muqtasarat of Sahih Al-Bukhari. So there's many who have made a summary of Sahih Bukhari, but this is one of those summaries. And also this one is somewhat is translated into English. So inshallah ta'ala, we'll continue discussing from where we had stopped. And we're discussing Kitab al-Wudu, the bab of, or the chapter of wudu, as the title given by Imam Bukhari rahimahullah. And we have reached concerning that we mentioned next bab to be discussed, bab Qiraat al-Quran, ba'd al-hadath wa ghayri. So it's discussing concerning, as he mentioned in this particular chapter, Qiraat al-Quran, ba'd al-hadath wa ghayri. So it's regarding the person reading of the Quran or reciting the Quran after hadath, after the person have nullified his wudu, wa ghayri, and other than this. So that's the discussion that to be, or the matter that Imam Bukhari rahimahullah wished to discuss. شوف الكتاب You want to read? You want to read a book? No? You want to read? Okay, let me read it. And okay. So Imam Bukhari rahimahullah, regarding this title of the book that he mentioned, which is chapter 29, according to the numbering of this book, and according to the English rendering or English translation, it is Hadith 142. Is Hadith number 142, where he mentioned, narrated Ibn Abbas radhiyallahu anhuma, that he stayed overnight in the house of Maymuna, the wife of the Prophet ﷺ, his aunt. He added, I lay on the cushion, spreading in its breadthwise direction, while Allah's Messenger ﷺ and his wife laid in a lengthwise direction. Allah's Messenger ﷺ slept till until the middle of the night. The middle of the night, either a bit before or a bit after, and he then woke up, rubbing his face off his face with his hands. The Messenger of Allah then recited the last 10 verses of Surah Ali Imran, got up and went to a hanging water skin. He then performed the ablution from it, and it was a perfect ablution, or wudu. He then stood up to offer the salah. I too got up and I did as the Prophet ﷺ had done, meaning Ibn Abbas. Then he mentioned, then I went and stood by his side, on his left side. He passed his right hand on my head and caught my right ear and twisted it, pulled it, and made me to stand by his right side. He prayed 2 rak'ah, then 2 rak'ah, and then 2 rak'ah, and then 2 rak'ah, then 2 rak'ah, and then 2 rak'ah, separately 6 times, and finally 1 rak'ah with her. Then he lay down again in the bed till the muhaddin came to him, whereupon the Prophet ﷺ got up, offered a light 2 rak'ah prayer, and went out and led the Fajr, the early morning Salah. Al-Hadith. So that's concerning the hadith that is mentioned here by the author rahimahullah regarding the English translation. And that will be the discussion that we have today regarding of those points that can be taken from this hadith. So of those matters that are discussed by the author rahimahullah, mentioned the hadith of Ibn Abbas radiyallahu anhuma, that he mentioned أنه بات ليلة عند ميمونة زوج النبي عليه السلام radiyallahu anha. So Ibn Abbas, that he mentioned that he slept that night, overnight, at the house of his aunt, who's Maymuna, and also she's the wife of the Prophet alayhi salam. Then he mentioned certain things that occurred that particular night. We mentioned that they went to sleep. اتجر رسول الله السلام وأهله في طولها. Then he slept. فنام رسول الله السلام. So he said the Prophet ﷺ that he slept. حتى إذا انتصف الليل, until about the middle of the night. أو قبله بقليل أو بعده بقليل, or it was something either a little before or after. Then he mentioned استيقظ رسول الله السلام فجلس ويمسى النوم عن وجهه بيده. Then he mentioned that he woke up and then he wiped the sleep from his face with his hand. ثم قرأ 10 آيات خواتم من سورة آل عمران. ثم قام إلى شن معلقا. Then he mentioned the Prophet ﷺ that when he woke up, that he read 10 verses from the last ayat from Surah Ali Imran. Then as he went then he went and he got some water, then he made wudu. Then he mentioned فَتَوَضَّ مِنْهَا فَأَحْسَنَ وُضُوءًا. Then he salam, he made wudu in the best of way. ثُمَّ قَامْ يُصَلِّي. Then he mentioned that salam, that he went and he prayed. So from this hadith that we mentioned, of those ahkam or those benefits that can be taken, that first starting regarding what is mentioned by Imam Bukhari rahimahullah, we mentioned qira'atul Quran ba'd al-hadath wa ghayri. So regarding concerning the heading that Imam Bukhari rahimahullah mentioned regarding qira'atul Quran ba'd al-hadath, that he mentioned. So what is the topic that he wished to discuss, or the discussion which he wished to have, is regarding reading of the Quran after the person have done something that nullifies his wudu. So the thing is it allowed for a person to read from the Quran without being in a state of tahara? So the discussion, is it allowed for a person, for one, to recite the Quran without being in a state of tahara? So that's concerned that discussion that they mentioned وغيري. So you have a lengthy discussion regarding even what is intended by Imam Bukhari rahimahullah when they mention وغيري, as to is it meant concerning that he mentioned qira'atul Quran ba'd al-hadath, hadath, that is intention regarding those things that nullify one wudu. They meant concerning al-hadath al-asghar. So this discussion regarding, is it permissible for one to recite the Quran after hadath al-asghar? So we mentioned hadath is of two types, al-asghar wal akbar. Asghar meaning those acts, if the person was to do them, then he's required only to perform wudu. And akbar, hadath al-akbar, if the person was to carry out do certain acts, then he required to perform ghusl. They are called hadath al-akbar wal hadath al-asghar. Akbar requires, which will be the major, which the person required to perform what? Ghusl. So if certain things occur, then the person, to put himself in a state of tahara, is required to perform ghusl, a complete wash. And that will be discussed later in the next chapter or the next kitab of Imam Bukhari. So he mentions, so Imam Bukhari, and we said asghar, if the person was to fall into certain acts, then for the person to renew his wudu, the person does need to renew his wudu, he just need to renew his wudu. Now those are asghar, require just al wudu, but akbar requires al ghusl. So when I mention regarding concerning this matter, regarding qira'atul Quran, that they mention here what is intended, even though it is not stated by Imam Bukhari. He mentioned ba'd al-hadath. Does he intend hadath al-akbar or asghar? Which is intended? So of most of the ulama, they are of the view that what is intended here is as asghar, is the minor impurities. But a discussion still, where I mentioned Imam Bukhari didn't stipulate whether it was major or minor. And those who say it is minor, that's the explanation of the ulama, or some of the ulama. But Imam Bukhari, he didn't clarify whether he intend major or minor. But those who incline that what is intent is minor, based upon the book that we're discussing, which is Kitab al-Wudu. So the fact that we're discussing Kitab al-Wudu, and the bab the next book that comes after this book is the book of ghusl. So regarding all the matters that are being discussed is related to wudu. Things that require wudu or things that a person should be in a state of wudu in carrying out those acts. So this case concerning Qira'atul Quran is related to, does the person who wish to perform, the person fall into Hadath al-Asghar, which he only needs wudu, not ghusl, is he allowed without tahara to read the Quran? So that's concerning the discussion. وغيره or غيري, more that they discuss, does the things of adhkar also requires wudu? So does reading Quran require the person must be in a state of wudu? Does, with some of the ulama, adhkar, does it requires wudu? So you have that discussion between Al-Kirmani or that concern that, this discussion also extend regarding not just Qira'atul Quran requires wudu, does it require wudu or not, but also things of adhkar. Some mention that's not the correct view of what is mentioned by Kirmani. So you find many who have explained Bukhari. So Kirmani of one of those ones. As we mentioned, this particular book is just to discuss the abwab, just the chapter headings of Bukhari. And it's about 6 volumes. And all of them is this size. Just the heading. Not about, it's not an explanation of the hadith or the athar. It's more so about the headings that he put in the book, or the titles of the different headings of the book. What does he actually explain those away? So this is one of those books that is, that goes into the mention that Ibn Hajar rahimahullah mentioned that what is intended by وغيري, concerning things concerning madan al-hadath. So things regarding that other things, the person, for example, was to sleep and get up. Does he require to perform wudu before he reads the Quran? So that's the discussion, because things concerning anything that nullify the person who is not in a state of tahara, al-asghar, and he required to perform wudu. Does he need to be in a state of wudu before he can read the Quran? So you have that discussion. As I mentioned concerning things like azkar, then ulama mentioned this, without doubt, it is not needed for a person to be in a state of tahara to make azkar. It's not a condition the person have to be in a state of tahara, right, for them to read azkar and the likes. So going back to what we're discussing regarding that the ulama discussed, so the matter is, what's the hukum regarding the person reciting the Quran if he's not in a state of tahara? On this matter, that you have some discussion between the ulama. So there's some discussion between the ulama on this particular topic to make it kind of somewhat clear, that they mention that Qira'at al-Quran lil-muhdath hadath al-asghar was a rule regarding a person reading the Quran while in a state of impurities, but the minor impurities. So regarding this particular matter, that you find that An-Nawawi rahimahullah, An-Nawawi in his book, in his Sharh of Mu'adhab. So Imam Nawawi rahimahullah, he has a book that he explained, one of the books of the Shafi'iyya fiqh, that he mentioned Ijma al-Muslimun, that is agreed upon between the Muslimun, ala jawaz qira'at al-Quran lil-muhdath hadath al-asghar wa afdal an yatawadda laha. So An-Nawawi rahimahullah, of those who have explained Sahih Muslim, and also have many explanation of books, of many works, even though An-Nawawi rahimahullah, he died when he was about in his mid-40s. He died in his mid-40s. So some of the ulama that have written concerning ulama who died when it's still somewhat in their young age. But if you were to compare the works of Nawawi to the time frame that he died, then they don't match, because they have done so much work. And a person of that age to have accomplished so much of that, for that age that he died, it is mashallah, tabarakallah. So, but of those, that he has many works regarding, because books of the Shafi'iyya fiqh, that his view at that age of only his mid-40s, his view is a counted view in the matter of the Shafi'iyya. It's taken, it is of worth, it's of value. His statements, they carry weight in the matter of the Shafi'iyya. So he wrote a book, an explanation book called Sharh Mu'adhab, which is an explanation of one of the books of the Shafi'iyya fiqh that he didn't complete, but he mentioned mainly concerning that the point here concerning Ijma al-Muslimun, is agreed upon between a Muslim, meaning concerning ulama al-Muslimun, ala jawaz qiraat al-Quran, that it is permissible for the one to recite the Quran, lil muhdith, for the one who is in a minor state of impurity, hadath al-asghar, wa afdal, and what is preferred, what is better, an yatawadda laha, it is better for a person to be in a state of tahara. So based upon this ijma of that is mentioned by An-Nawawi, that can someone indicating that it is permissible that one can do so. And also the one who have explained, I said the Abwab of Sahih Bukhari, that also you can have someone, he mentioned something similarly. That he mentioned, ثم جواز قراءة القرآن المحدث مجمع عليه عند أئمة الأربعة والجمهور العلماء. So another view concerning that of the ulama who mentioned jawaz, it is allowed, permissible, قراءة القرآن محدثا, the one who is in a state of minor impurity, مجمع عليه عند الأئمة الأربعة, and it is agreed upon between أئمة الأربعة. Who's أئمة الأربعة? Imam Abu Hanifa, Imam Malik, Imam Shafi, or Imam Ahmad ibn Hanbal, according to what is mentioned here. والجمهور العلماء, and also the majority of the ulama. So that's concerning the mention وخلافا لمن شذ من بعد السلف كما في الأوجز. So they mentioned that there's a difference between some ulama, but their view is somewhat odd views. Their view is not, their view go against the majority of the ulama, and their view is considered to be a bit odd, out of place view amongst the ulama of the Salaf. كما في أوجز. Well, أوجز is a book which is a explanation of Muwatta Imam Malik. So the author here of this book is more inclined to the Hanafi madhab. So you find that the Hanafis, as we mentioned before, even the Hanafis have explained the book of Muwatta of Imam Malik, even though it's generally concerned with the main usul of the Malikiyah. But because one of the narrators of Muwatta, you have people who have narrated that book. Some of the students, one of them is one of the Abul Hasan of one of the Hanafis, so they're one of the main sheikh of the Hanafis, so they rely upon that book also. But a shahid is that what is mentioned here, as is mentioned concerning that, reciting the Quran regarding, for those who are in a minor impurity, jaiz. That's the call of Jumhur of the ulama. And now, rahimullah, can somewhat mention there's an ijma on this particular topic. So that's concerning that particular matter. So Imam Bukhari rahimullah, but there's a khilaf between on the matter, where those who hold it is something which is disliked regarding the person reciting the Quran, and they're in a state of minor impurity. Then the hadith that they mentioned, as for what can be taken from the hadith also, that, and the shahid from Imam Bukhari, the shahid that Imam Bukhari can have someone to use as his proof, that it is permissible for a person to recite the Quran if they're not in a state of tahara, but rather they're in a state of minor impurity. That he mentioned hadith, the hadith that he mentions of Ibn Abbas, that the shahid he mentioned, from the shahid from that hadith he mentioned, is take Rasul al-Islam fajalas, that the Messenger of Allah, that he woke up in the middle of the night, yamsa an-nawm and wajhi, that he alayhi salam biyadi, that he was wiping sleep from his face. That it mentioned thumma, then qaraha 10 ayat khawatim min surah Al-Imran, that he alayhi salam when he got up and wiped his face, then of those things that he started to, that he read 10 verses, the 10 last verses from Surah Ali Imran. He read the last 10 verses from Surah Ali Imran. And that was done while what? He was not in a state of tahara. Kayf, we know that he mentioned that. Then he mentioned, ثُمَّ قَامْ إِلَى شِنٍّ مُعَلَّقًا, that he went to the water skin that was there, فَتَوَضَّ مِنْهَا فَأَحْسَنَ وُضُوهَا. Then he went to the water skin, then he made wudu in the best of ways. So it shows that he read 10 ayat from the Quran without being in a state of tahara. And that kind of somewhat So it shows concern, and that so that shows that, and that's the proof of Imam Bukhari and those who are of that view, that is not wajib, is not compulsory for a one to be in a state of tahara in reciting of the Quran, in reciting of the Quran. So from the hadith, the general benefit that can be taken, that from the hadith it showed that Ibn Abbas spending the night at his aunt's house, who was also the wife of the Prophet ﷺ, who's Maymuna, and that for him to kind of somewhat, then he kind of somewhat saw, or the Prophet ﷺ function inside the house. Then he mentioned that he went to sleep. So it shows regarding that ﷺ that he slept part of the night and didn't per se stay up all night praying. So ﷺ, he slept. Then in the middle of the night, he got up. Then he read some verses from the Quran, then performed al-wudu. And the other thing that occurred. So it shows regarding concern the Muslim, that this hadith shows regarding that Qiyamul Layl is something which is encouraged. But for the person not to do so throughout the entire night. So Islam will do so by getting up in the middle of the night, then make Qiyamul Layl. Then also from the hadith it shows regarding concerning that reading of the Quran before Salah and before wudu, without being in a state of wudu, without being in a state of tahara. But as we said, that it with the ulama is regarding the person who is in a state of hadath al-asghar, minor impurities. As for major, then that requires the next discussion. With that also, so that's concerning then other benefits can be taken from the hadith that they mention regarding concerning that that Islam, then when regarding concerning the salat, that he corrected him in salah. So when then he got up, that the young man, that he went to which side of him? His right, his left. And then he moved him to his right. So it showed regarding the individuals who are praying concerning that imam and one ma'mum, that he stand to his right. He stand to the right of this is the right of the imam. So you stand to the right of the imam. So whatever side the imam is, if you're praying with another person, then that person stand to your right. Is that person, are you to be ahead of him a little or not? Some of the ulama require, because you are the word imam means you should be ahead of him. So they prefer that the imam is somewhat ahead of the person and the person a little behind. But so that's something. But as for that, there's no clear dalil regarding that. So the person can stand side by side, beside a person, is not conditional that you have to be in front of that person. But the person wants to be beside you, then it is still acceptable. Then it mentioned regarding concern of those matters, and it also shows regarding that Ibn Abbas was corrected in the salah and actually moved. So it showed that movements in the salah at that time, it is allowed for something that pertained to the betterment of the salah. So when he moved him, because he was in a position, what was the wrong position where he was standing, so he moved him, so he moved. But a person in his movements in the salat must still face the qibla. So the body is still facing the qibla, as we mentioned, that as known, that facing the qibla is one of the conditions of the salah, or one of the prerequisites of the salah. So the person, if he does any movements, have to move. If you have to move forward or back or side, he's still facing the qibla. So if he's moving side, he moves in a way which is, he's still facing the qibla. At times you might find that people, sometimes things may occur and they want to look behind them. The fact that you look behind completely, turn off in the qibla, then your salat is batil. You can't just go back into the salah. A person sitting, for example, and something, as the person standing, and something was to occur, and the person completely turn his face and his body away from the qibla. Turn complete left turn or complete right turn away from the qibla, then your salat is batil. Or the person turn around, to see what's going on, then that salat is batil. But a person able to move, but a person move with his body still facing the qibla. That's the important point. Then alayhi salam, he made the salat al-qiyamul layl, and mentioned concerning that, فأخذ, then he mentioned that, no, فصلي ركعتين 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 ركعتين. They mentioned concerning the ركعتين 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 13. He prayed that night 13 rakat. That night he prayed 13 rakat. So and this becomes so that and this becomes of the adillah regarding that I mentioned. He meant the hadith mentioned فصلى ركعتين, that's 2. ثم ركعتين, that's 4. ثم ركعتين, that's how many? 6. ثم ركعتين, how much? 8. ثم ركعتين, ثم ركعتين, 12. ثم أوتر, then he made 1 of witr. How much is that total of? 13. So a discussion regarding, is the person allowed to exceed 11 rakat in any prayer in the night? So in this situation, he exceed what? 11. So is one regarding Qiyamul Layl, or even in Ramadan, what we call Taraweeh, is a person allowed to exceed 11? As in the hadith of Ajrat Anna regarding that Islam never exceed ma yazid ala 11. But in this case, he what? He exceed 11. So it shows regarding the discussion where you find that of the ulama, majority all that, the person is allowed to exceed 11 rak'ah. And some of the ulama hold that the person is not allowed to exceed 11. And you find some of the ulama of contemporary time that they were that they kind of somewhat old to that view, and they're tullab, that is not allowed for the person to exceed 11 rakat in the night prayer, including in Ramadan or outside Ramadan. And I should have mentioned that لا في رمضان ولا في غيره, not in Ramadan or outside Ramadan. So hadith was very general, that include not exceeding 11 rak'ah in Ramadan or outside Ramadan. But we said this hadith of Ibn Abbas proved different. It proves different, that Islam exceeded 11 rak'ah. It's time for the adhan.
Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar. Ashhadu an la ilaha illallah. Ashhadu an la ilaha illallah. أشهد أن محمدا رسول الله. أشهد أن محمدا رسول الله. حي على الصلاة. حي على الصلاة. حي على الفلاح. حي على الفلاح. الله أكبر، الله أكبر. لا إله إلا الله.
Hey, so Alhamdulillah. So regarding concerning the hadith of Ibn Abbas, regarding, as we mentioned, that Islam exceeded 11 rak'ah. And we mentioned that you find that a discussion between some of the ulama that will take the position that one is not allowed to exceed 11 rak'ah, whether in Ramadan or outside Ramadan, regarding Qiyamul Layl. So Qiyamul Layl is start concerning after Salat al-Isha, up until Salatul Fajr. So that's the time of Qiyamul Layl. And as earlier the hadith of Ibn Abbas mentioned that, what's the preferred timing the person do it after the second half of the night. So Qiyamul Layl, the more preferred, the last third or the second half of the night is the more preferred time regarding Salat Qiyamul Layl. Then to clarify that concern that that is 11 rakat I mentioned, to call ثم اتجع حتى أتاه المؤذن. Then he alayhi salam that he went and lay down until the muazzin came to meet the adhan. فقال فقام فصلى ركعتين خفيفتين. So show that concerning that those 11 rak'ah that he made is separate from those 2 rak'ah of those 2 rak'atain of Fajr, that they're completely 2 separate things. So there's no, so it's kind of somewhat to re-emphasize that Islam exceeded 11 rak'ah. As we mentioned, you find some of the ulama of contemporary times have somewhat wrote on this particular topic and kind of somewhat took this stance. And also there's tullab, and of them, not even though we don't not like to mention names of, but like Shaykh Al-Albani rahimahullah, of ulama of contemporary time, that somewhat was of the view that one should not exceed and cannot exceed, shouldn't exceed. And also of his student, and I've written books on that. And also you find the likes of his students, Sheikh Hali Hassan Al-Halabi rahimahullah tabarak ta'ala, also who wrote books on this also. Of recent, Sheikh Ali was of this view that you're not allowed to exceed 11. But before his death rahimahullah, that he have written that he changed that position. So you have one of his students who have kind of compiled some work regarding that matter, regarding his work. So of his final view before his death, that regarding the stance that he had before of holding that you cannot exceed 11 rak'ah, he changed that view. So it shows regarding a person concerning ilm, talib al-ilm, that in reviewing of a masala, that their view at times may change. And one is not binding to a view, and more so, the time of where your sheikh is alive, you might still alter that view after your sheikh have died. You might review the matter and see it from a different perspective, or based upon different adalil, or but the overall thing that he changed his position regarding that particular masala, regarding not allowed to exceed 11 rak'ah. When he died, he changed that view where it became something that was allowed. So that's concerning that matter that he discussed concerning of this thing that can be taken from this particular hadith. And also it shows regarding that Ibn Abbas, that when concerned, it shows concerning imitating concerning the people of khair. Shown regarding a person trying to sit down to imitate and to imitate those who are involved in doing of good. So Ibn Abbas anhu, that he saw the Prophet ﷺ, that he was doing this act of what he saw he did, that Ibn Abbas, he did it. So what he saw that the Prophet ﷺ, that he got up and he prayed and he did join him in his salat. So it shows regarding that a person who see concerning good being done by others, then for the person to copy others in things of goodness. And also it shows regarding that not even correction. Also that the Islam that he corrected Ibn Abbas regarding that, he can somewhat use the word, took the initiative to go to his left side. Without instruction. And the Prophet Islam, he corrected him. So it shows regarding that at times a person's intention might be good in kind of a particular thing, but he didn't understand that act well, but he's still open and should be willing to be corrected by others. So not believe it, so be willing to be corrected. And also from the hadith, it shows again a proof regarding concerning that tahara regarding salat is wajib. That regarding concerning shart or min shurut to salat, that tahara is from of those acts that nullify that that is a requirement regarding as-salah. A matter to be discussed, that the hadith that he mentioned that Islam regarding that after sleeping that he made wudu. So discussion concerning that, Nawm min nawaqil al-wudu. Does not sleeping nullify the person's wudu? Now, so that is an area of discussion between the ulama regarding is of those things that nullify the person's wudu, nawm. And a difference, those who hold that not all sleep. If the person somewhat says a slumber, nam, so he's not in full sleep, then that doesn't require wudu. But the person have gone into a deep sleep, where he has law of consciousness of what's around him, then he's required to perform al-wudu. So you have that tafsir or that discussion between the ulama regarding wudu. Also from the hadith it shows the virtue of nafila inside one's home. Nafila inside the house. And also regarding even qiyam al-layl being done with others. So the Prophet Islam, that Ibn Abbas, that he joined the Prophet Islam regarding a nafila being done as a form of jama'ah. So that's something that is not to be done regular, but if it is done, it is still accepted, as in this case where Ibn Abbas, that he joined him in the salah, and Islam didn't in the end mention to him that your salat is invalid, and what he did is a bid'ah and wrong. He just corrected regarding where he positioned himself, but as for the salat, then it is accepted regarding, so that shows regarding that, for example, a husband and a wife, and Islam at times will pray with his family at night. So a person encouraging his family and those in the home to pray as a jama'ah. So not each person will pray separate, but they can pray as a jama'ah in a nafila as qiyamul layl. So that inshallah ta'ala, so you can somewhat even emphasize the importance of al-jama'ah fi salat al-farida. Says even more, it's considered that also to show concern, it is even more required that the person regarding trying to pray the compulsory salat with the jama'ah. So with that inshallah ta'ala we'll end for today and continue next week. Wabillahi ta'ala tawfiq. Because of time, so we'll do the mustalah, but we leave that on for next time.